when we were at a sit down, Chazz, it was very good training in life because if I was sitting across the table from another made guy that was lying through his teeth, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this guy's lying about, I could not call him a liar because if I called him a liar, it would be disrespectful and I would lose the argument.
Yeah.
So I had to listen and then tactfully make the boss or whoever's administrating over this realize that this guy is lying. I had to outsmart him, but it did teach me self-control because sometimes you want to jump over the table and say, are you kidding me? You know, but you couldn't do it. I had to sit there, listen, and then try to figure out how to show that he was lying without calling him a liar.
Hi, I'm Chazz Palminteri.
Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
A wise guy.
And here we are. We're back again, Chazz, and
yes, we
ready
are.
for another episode of this show that people seem to be enjoying.
Yeah, I just cannot believe how the show just exploded. And I tell the new people out there, if you're listening for the first time, hit that subscribe button and give us your comments. Where else are you going to get this kind of information, this kind of insight?
Yeah, and I want to tell you, Chazz came up with this idea because what he said is, during his life, so many people have come up to him and said, wow, I wish I knew Machiavelli. I wish I knew, Steve Jobs or anything else. And Chazz said, hey, you may not meet him in person, but all of these people wrote books and all of their knowledge is put in their writings. And, you can learn through them from the books. And obviously we give our perspective, which is a little added bonus to all of this.
Exactly. I look at the books I have, here in my office, and I just say, these are my friends. It's like, I want to know something about Marcus Aurelius and Siena. I just go, let me go find the book and then read about him. So people don't realize, that reading is just, it's godly. Like, it's incredible. You learn. You just learn. The more you read, the better person you become, the better. I'm a writer, so you get ideas from it. So I think it's just, reading is really, really, I think more people should read.
Oh, absolutely. My reading time now comes on airplanes because I travel so much.
Yeah.
Honestly, the most reading I did in my life was when I was in solitary. If it wasn't for books, I would have lost my mind, Chazz, honestly, and I just, anything I can get my hands on, I read. Fiction, nonfiction, I didn't care what it was, the Bible, every Christian book, every book about faith you can imagine. I just soaked everything up. But you know what? It was a great, I learned a lot in that time. I really did.
Anyway, especially, when you're in solitaire like that, that's,
you either read or your mind goes stagnant.
Goes stagnant. You're right, man.
All right, so what do we have today? Today we got a book that I think everybody would enjoy. It's called The Four Agreements. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a powerful book that offers practical wisdom for personal transformation. And we, as normal, we go over 5 key points that we pick out in the book. We don't want to read the whole book, obviously, that's for you. But we want to give you what we think of the 5 key points, and hopefully that'll motivate you to pick it up and read it. Because these, I'm reluctant to use the word self-help. I don't know if I like that, but there are people that just have enough wisdom and perspective and experience in life to be able to put it down on paper for us to look at and learn from. And I think this is one of them. We're real selective with these books. We don't just pick anything up.
Right.
But I think this one is one of value. So the first point there is, and this is kind of a redundant theme to all people that are successful and have transformed their life. Number 1, be impeccable with your word. Choose your words carefully. Use them to express truth and kindness. Avoid using words to spread negativity or engage in gossip. We talked about this, I think, with my friend Brett's book. But hey, it's a redundant theme and it's so critical, Chazz.
Oh, like I said on one of our other podcasts, I had that incident with that guy, and I was just spreading gossip like that, and I just I hate it. I just think about it. What does gossip do? Gossip does nothing. You don't know if it's true. You don't know, what do you want from the other person when you're telling him that, and what is your means to the end by telling me that? It's all negative. Gossip, everything about it. Think about it, is negative. There's not one good thing can come out of gossip. So don't do it. It's very simple. Don't do it.
Exactly. Even in the book of Proverbs in the Bible, it talks about gossip and how bad it is, evil. It calls it, and it's something we should all try to avoid in any way possible. And it says, avoid using words to spread negativity. I totally agree with that. Chazz, don't you hate to be around somebody that everything that comes out of their mouth is negative?
I can't be around them. No, Michael, I cannot be around them. I do it for a little bit of time and then I have to go. I got to go because actually it's Dr. Phil Stutz who he's got that famous he's a very famous psychiatrist. He just became famous because Jonah Hill put him on. Did you ever see Stutz? It's on Netflix. You got to watch it.
No, I didn't see
Jonah
it.
Hill filmed the documentary on his shrink, Dr. Phil Stutz. And he's my shrink that I've been seeing him for 30 something years. I'm one of his longest patients.
Really?
And he sees everybody. He's always been quiet all these years, but Jonah Hill kind of busted him open. But Jonah did a great documentary on him. And I love Phil Stutz. And he told me one thing, I'll never forget it. And he said to me, Chazz, he said, the thing about people who are negative, he said, you can never tell them not to be negative or never bring them up. He said, but the opposite is not true. People like that can bring you down with them. And I was like, wow. He said, so there's no good that comes from people like that. Stay away from them. They will suck the life out of you. And you ever see these people, Michael? You meet them and you try to tell them how to change their life. And then you tell them again how to change their life. And then you meet them a month from now. And again, you got to tell them they're still not. After a while, you got to stop. You got to stop. You just got to go with God. I can't do this no more.
Yeah, no, I've come across so many of those people throughout my life, and I avoid them too. I can't be around them either, Chazz.
Yeah, I'll be a gentleman. I'll say, when I meet them, I'm a gentleman. How are you? Let's get together for dinner. Man, I can't right now. I just,
yeah,
I can't do it. And believe me, that has to happen. You got to really get to me before I get to that stage. I'll try 2, 3, 4 times with you. But then if I see I'm not getting nothing, I just go, okay, that's enough. See, my wife, she wants to help everybody. She wants to talk to everybody. And I say, honey, you got to stop with her. She's not getting it. It's never going to change. She picked the same boyfriends and husbands 5 times in a row. It's over. It's over.
Oh, the definition of insanity, same thing over and over, expecting a different result. But
right.
I totally agree. I can't. That's just something I just can't deal with. Like you said, once, twice, third time, enough.
Yeah, you got to recognize when it's like Dr. Phil Stutz would say, it's like catching rain with a bucket with a hole in it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't.
And for all those of you that might be in that category, we're not trying to be rude or demeaning. Just realize that people will listen, maybe to try to help you, but if you're in constant negativity, if you're surrounded by it, there's something wrong with that. And you have to look into yourself and say, why am I being this way? What's going on? Is it me? It's funny. There was a very dear friend of mine, who was talking to my wife, and she's like Gianna, very honest. And he was telling her about all the missed girlfriends and relationships that he had.
Wow.
And he said he just couldn't figure it out. And she turned to him and she said, Jay, did you ever think that the problem might be you?
Wow.
Yeah. So she turned around and said, Jay, did you ever think, the problem might be you? And she didn't say it in a mean way. She didn't, she just said it nicely. And it was like, he's a nice guy. And the bell kind of went off in his head. He said, you know what, maybe it is. And he started to just review certain things. And, so you could be truthful.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have to be mean about it or negative about it, the way you approach somebody, but, be impeccable with your word. I think that really, really sums it up. Just think before you talk. Because look, I say this, the pen is mightier than the sword. Right. Words can kill. Chaz, I don't even want to think about it because I've read so much that's horrific. Some of the things that are being said to people or about people on social media with our young people are causing them to go as far as committing suicide.
Imagine that.
Your words, are so powerful and they can be so damaging to somebody as well as uplifting, but so damaging. So,
Right.
people really got to be careful in how they talk and use your words to bring people up, to be honest,
Right.
to bring them up and not bring them down.
Yeah, and like what he's saying, negativity is so important because, Michael, if you're negative about everything, what could you expect but a negative outcome?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, you
Exactly.
know, I expect good outcomes. I see good things in my life. I see, I used to say, you're very much similar to me. We're two of the luckiest guys in the world, man.
Without a
You
doubt.
there for the grace go I. For the grace of God go I. I mean, we could have been just one different turn you take, one different turn I take, and you know, it's over.
100%. So proof
Yeah.
positive that positivity works in life. Number two,
Yes.
okay, this is good too. Don't take anything personally. Recognize that others' actions and words are a projection of their own reality, beliefs, and experiences. Don't allow their opinions or actions to affect your self-worth. I
Wow.
agree with that to a degree. I think some things you do take personally if they're directed personally at you.
Yeah.
But I also say I understand what he's saying. Listen, if I would take things personally, some of the things that are being said online from people I don't even know, never heard of, I would be arguing and fighting with everybody. But I know they're not true. I
Right.
have enough confidence in my,
Right.
self to know that, hey, talk is cheap, go out and do it. And I just let it go by. So I
Yeah.
think that's what he means by that.
Yeah. Look, let me sound a little self-centered here. A little. You're a great guy. I'm a great guy. Some people don't like us, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I know I'm a great guy. I know you're a great guy. And if you don't like me for a certain reason, whatever, to me, that doesn't bother me
Mhm.
because in my mind, I go, "You're wrong. I'm
Yeah.
a great guy." And really, that's my confidence. And I know you feel the same way. And if you have a problem with me, if it's something I really did wrong, then I would say, you know what? He has the right not to like me because I was young then and I did a stupid thing. So, but you know what? I'm okay with it. But he's right about that. I did do that. Or I just go, he doesn't know me and I don't give a shit.
Right.
So either way, it's okay. It's okay.
We have the same attitude with that, Chaz. Getting personal, I look back, and obviously I was divorced from my first wife.
Right.
My kids, I didn't leave them in a way I was taken away because
Right.
immediately after divorce, almost I went to prison for 8 years.
Wow.
So it was more difficult. But with the girls, there was certain resentment there. I get it. They were right. I was the
Yes.
dad. I didn't do the right thing in that regard.
Right.
No excuses. Whatever happened, I was away from them, and I get it. So I understand that. And if it's a personal thing with that, okay, I'm guilty.
Yes.
Of course, we patched it up later, but I'm talking about initially. But I agree with you 100%. There's guys that don't like me, but I know who I am. And if you don't
Yes.
like me, that's your problem,
It's
basically.
yeah, it's okay. Don't like me. You
Yeah.
know what? Because I know where I'm going. I know I got to answer to my family and to God. So you're like a pebble on this journey for me. You
Exactly.
don't mean anything. Or as my friend used to say, you're as big as a butterfly's belch. It's like it's like it doesn't mean anything. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. And there's a real power in that. There's a real freedom in that. And it was actually Robert De Niro who showed me in the very beginning. Bob doesn't read any reviews about himself. He doesn't. And he told me if I was smart not to. And at the same time, my shrink told me that too. And so I stopped reading reviews. So I haven't read a review about myself for the past 30 years. I know that sounds amazing or unbelievable, but it's true. I don't. I could actually look at my face in the New York Times with a review and just turn the page. I've done it, because I'm actually even afraid to look at it, because I'm so strong in my head where I go, there's no need to look at it. Why? And if it's great, I really don't want to look at it. The better the review, the more I don't want to look at it, because good reviews will hurt you more than the bad ones. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true.
No, and let me tell you, I totally understand that, and I get it. And I want people to understand, to our viewers, this is not coming from arrogance or
No.
narcissism or anything else. This is a practice that you all have to engage in, meaning that if you're confident in yourself and you know you're a good person, or you know you try to do the right thing most of the time, again, it's self-awareness, knowing who you are. Well, you can't let other people affect you if they have a negative opinion of you that they've just developed on their own, not because anything you did to them, or not
Right.
because in any way that you hurt them. They just, for whatever reason, don't like you. And if you have a persona on social media, you're going to get a lot of that. People that
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know you, whatever, they don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you talk, they don't like your past, but they don't know you. So don't let it bother you. Don't take it personal if you read negative comments.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, if the greatest living human being who ever walked the face of the earth, Jesus Christ, some people didn't like him, what shot do we got?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
There's no better way to sum that up, people.
Right.
So that was a great ending to that point. Let's move on. Okay, don't make assumptions. Avoid making assumptions about others' intentions, thoughts, or feelings. Instead, ask questions and seek clarification to avoid misunderstandings and unnecessary conflicts. Yeah, that's great. You know, sometimes we assume what somebody's thinking, we assume what they're
Yeah.
thinking of us. We're not really sure. So it's always better to seek clarification rather than to just come away with a bad feeling about it.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when I just got a phone call from one of the one of the heads of the actor studio. And he said to me, because I moderate some play, and we have some great people who moderate there, myself and Lyle Kessler, John Patrick Shanley, some wonderful moderators. Yeah, Alec Baldwin is moderated there, just Pacino has. And anyway, he said to me only a few days ago, he said, Chazz, I just got a couple of people said to me that you're a little rough on some of the writers. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He goes, you know, you give great notes, but maybe you can go a little easier. And I went, I don't think I do, but then I thought about it and I said, let me think about that. I said, gee, because a lot of people like when I moderate because I say what I feel and I say the truth and I don't blow any smoke up anybody. So if it's great, I'll tell you it's great. If it ain't great, I'll say it might be great for you, but it's not great for me. You know, I mean, I'll say it. And I thought about what he said. And I thought about that and I said, you know, at first I got a little uppity with myself, like, hey man, they can't take this. What is this shit? You know, you're at the actor's studio, man. You're in the hot seat here. Here's where all the good shit gets done. But then I said to myself, and she said to my wife, actually, he's the one who said it to me. She said, honey, you know, you could take it. You could take the devil in his pajamas talking to you like that. But some people just can't. And so maybe you should like just pull it back a little bit, you know? And speaking of the devil, that's all right now. And I said, she was right. And she's the one who said it to me. She was like, you could take it. You don't read reviews, you don't give a shit. But not everybody's like you. So maybe you should lighten up just a little. And you know what? She was right. And I accepted that I can't assume that everybody can deal with it like I can. So yeah, so from now on, any actor studio guys out there, I'm gonna lighten up on you a little bit.
That's good. I hope they're listening.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
it's great. Sometimes we do assume things, and they could be wrong. Maybe somebody miscommunicated something or we took it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Rather than just, hey, I'm cutting that person off or, the heck with them. It might be better to just delve a little further and get clarification. I
Yeah,
like.
but that's the idea is you don't get mad. You investigate why that person felt that way, and is there any validity to that? Well, yeah, there is. I guess there is. So, and I'll be more aware of that and be more sensitive the next time. So you learn.
Good point. Number 4, obvious here, always do your best. Strive to give your best effort in everything that you do. Your best may vary from day to day, but as long as you've given it your all, you can avoid self-judgment and regret. Chazz, I found out if I get involved in something I'm not doing my best, I don't really care about it to begin with. So why am I even involved?
Why are you even doing it?
Yeah. Why am I even doing this? You think about it afterwards and I don't really care about this, or it's not important to me right now, or I've done that a few times myself, and it's a good point. If you're not doing your best, why bother?
You know what? We have to come up, and we could say this on Zoom. Like I said before, we have to come up we have to end sometimes. What is the number one thing that we're saying in this podcast that people have to learn, that we all learn? And like I said it before, that one thing, and I want to say another thing. And I learned this a long time ago. I learned this from a brilliant man who told me this many years ago. And he said, whenever you do something for money or for guilt, it will come back and bite you in the ass every time. And you know what? Every time I follow that advice, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I don't follow that advice, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. I didn't want to do this movie. I was like, oh, I did it because of the money was so insane. And then I do the movie and I go, oh my God, that movie turned out shit. But you knew that, Chazz. You knew that. But as they say, I did it for the beach house. But every time I do it, it never ends good. Or if I do something, oh, this guy wants me in this thing. He wanted me to do him a favor. Chazz, please, I need your help with this. And I felt really guilty. And then I do it. And oh my God, I pay for it because he wasn't up to the task. He wasn't good enough to audition for Broadway, but he wanted an audition and he begged me for it. And he was a good friend. And I said, and even my wife said, he's a very good friend. I said, I know, but he's not right for this part. And he doesn't have the chops to do this. I convinced the casting people to do it. And he does it. He auditions. And then I get the phone call, Chazz, you always have great taste. Well, what? You knew this guy was. And I said, I'm sorry, you're right. And I felt like, oh God, and then he complains to me, they didn't give me the time I needed. And I went, why did I do this? Why did I do this? I just should have said to him, you're not ready to do this. You can't do this. The people you're going up against are pros who have been on Broadway. You can't do it. But I didn't. I felt guilt. But I'll never do that again, ever, ever.
Yeah, and I the same thing in my life. When I kind of half-assed it, so to speak, okay, it normally doesn't work out. I want people to understand, when we select these books and we think that there are key points in there, they're wise books from wise people, and we relay our experiences, what we're hoping that you're doing is that you're relating it back to yourself. Because look, Chazz can be an actor, I could be an ex-mobster, but there's a lot of ways where it's still relatable. When we're telling a story about how this particular item affected us, you should be thinking in your head, well, yeah, you know what? I had that same experience. We just kind of rattle your brain a little bit so that you understand it. And then, of course, suggesting that you read that book if you're into reading, because there's a lot of good information there. So I hope we understand that. That's why we relay these stories, because listen, Chazz, the best way you learn in this world, Jesus did it in parables. He used to make up stories, parables. And that's how you learn in life. My father, I'll never forget, he hated drugs so much. When I was a kid, he would make up horrible stories about drugs that would scare me, and they weren't even true.
Yeah.
But he said, son, I wanted to put it in your brain about how bad it is, because this story may not be true, but the reality of it is even worse. And he told me that. And I said, you know what, Dad, that's good, because it worked. With me, it works.
I did the same with my kids.
Yeah.
No, I did the same.
Yeah.
I brought them down. I brought them down to the neighborhood. I brought them to the Bronx in a spot where I know these junkies would be. And I knew they knew me. When my son was like, he was about 8 or 9. And I walked by there. I wasn't afraid, because I knew a lot of these junkies, where they would hang out by the playground. And they said, hey, see, how you doing? They were stoned. And one guy came over to me. I'll never forget him. He was I don't even know if he's alive now. His teeth were all out, and he was one of the most handsome men I've ever hung out with. And he looked terrible. And he said, could you help me out? And I gave him, I said, yeah, sure, man, thank you. And I gave his friend a 20, whatever. And we walked away, and my son looked at me and said, Dad, what happened to him? And I told him. I said, I worked with that guy. He was in a band of mine. That guy was one of the most handsome guys you ever would see. Drop dead Paul Newman handsome. He goes, no way, Dad. I said, yeah. Blue eyes, drop dead handsome. I said, look at him now. He's the walking dead. I said, that's what drugs does. My son never forgot that. He still tells the story. Never.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. That's a great way. I'll never forget, there was an episode of the TV series Ray Donovan. I don't know if you ever watched it, but I love that series.
Yeah, it is a great show.
And there was a kid that was trying to be a wise guy, gangbanger, all this kind of stuff. The guy's trying to teach him a lesson. So he drives him into East LA, right, in a bad section, and throws him out of the car and says, okay, you want to be a tough guy? Here they are, blend in. And he drives away, right? And all the gang guys are starting to come around him, and the kid starts, oh my God, and he starts running after the car. And obviously he stops and says, get in now. Now, you want to be a tough guy, and you can't even stay here 5 minutes in the hood? Get in the car. You'll learn your lesson. So, sometimes, and that's what we're trying to do here. We give you our experiences that we've related to in some of the key points of these books, and hopefully you relate it back to yourself and say, you know what, that makes sense. Maybe this is something I wasn't doing in my life, or maybe this is something that I can do that's going to help improve me. So that's what it's all about. Let's go to number 5. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. Question the beliefs and assumptions you have been taught, and be open to new perspectives. Listen attentively to others without interrupting or imposing your own ideas, as this allows for better understanding and connection. One thing, Chazz, that drives me out of my mind. If my kids want to get to me, they know what to do. When I'm talking to you and I'm trying to make a point across, and you're interrupting me and responding, you don't even know what I'm going to finish, how I'm going to end the conversation. You're already defending yourself.
But they're not listening.
Crazy. No, drives me crazy. I said, but you don't even know what I'm going to say, and you're already defending yourself.
Right.
To me, one of the worst things you do is interrupt somebody when they're trying to get a point across.
Right. You're right.
It's terrible, really.
Right. Yeah. You got to know when to keep your mouth shut and just listen. Because if you listen long enough, you'll realize that you shouldn't open your mouth. Wait. Just wait.
Exactly.
Just listen. It's like going to a car dealership and the guy says, well, give me a price. Tell me what you want to pay. And I always go, what am I used to tell the guy, you want me to negotiate against myself? What are you, crazy? No. You tell me what the deal is. I mean, just listen to what he's saying. Understand that. That's all. Yeah.
Chazz, in my former life, when I used to sit down with somebody, we had to sit down over a business deal or whatever. The most difficult way to navigate that sit down is when you're sitting with somebody that didn't talk that much.
Yeah.
Because now you're trying to figure out, what is he thinking? Where is he going? And you're trying to get things out of him. The guy that had diarrhea of the mouth, as they say, they were the easiest. Talk. And by the end of the day, you know exactly what you got to do to win the argument.
Yeah,
You know,
he's stepping on everything that he's saying. He's forgetting what he's saying two
exactly,
sentences later. So you're saying to yourself, "This guy's full of shit." He's full.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
it's a guy.
always
Yeah, you're right.
always great. Be a good listener. Don't interrupt people. Be polite in that regard, and then respond when you're supposed to respond. And at least you can respond intelligently because you know what he's going to say or what he has
Hmm.
said. And
Right.
don't interrupt. I just hate when people do that. When you're trying to express something and they won't even let you finish the sentence. It's a bad habit for all of you out there. Don't do it. It's
Don't
first
do
of
it.
all, you turn people off. They don't want to talk to you anymore. And
Yeah.
second of all, you don't learn anything.
And also, Michael, I don't know if we didn't touch on it, but maybe we should just touch on that one thing and that's when you lose your temper,
Yeah,
even if you're right, you're wrong.
absolutely.
You cannot lose your temper because even if you're in the right, you're wrong. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I always tell people that don't lose your temper. It's hard, but you got to do it. It's called emotional intelligence. Don't do it.
When we were at a sit down, Chaz, it was very good training in life because if I was sitting across the table from another made guy that was lying through his teeth, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this guy's lying about, I could not call him a liar because if I called him a liar, it would be disrespectful and I would lose the argument.
Yeah.
So I had to listen and then tactfully make the boss or whoever's administrating over this realize that this guy is lying. I had to outsmart him, but it did teach me self-control because sometimes you want to jump over the table and say, are you kidding me? But you couldn't do it. I had to sit there, listen, and then try to figure out how to show that he was lying without calling him a liar.
Now, again, getting over the subject just a little bit, but whether the person who was mediating, if one guy, if the other guy was a soldier in his family, wouldn't he have the edge?
Well, not it all depends. Like when I was a captain, the only one that could mediate would be the boss, or maybe the underboss if the boss. So, and if it was involving somebody from another family, then both bosses would be present.
Both
Oh
bosses
yeah,
would be.
yeah, and then they would powwow afterwards, and okay, this is what we're going to do. They
Got
would.
it. Okay, that's legal. I didn't know that. Okay.
But if it was within the same family, then the boss was sitting there, and he would render a decision. And he would listen, and hopefully you'd get your point across to in a way that he'd know you're right. And that's if no politics were being played. Because sometimes you could be 100% right, but if they're playing politics with the other guy, then you could lose a decision. It all depends.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but you see, even then, you had to do it in such a way that you wouldn't allow that to happen. You had to be so strong in the fact that you were right that the boss couldn't do that. You know.
Right. Right. I see.
No,
Okay.
Chaz, you learned everything. If you, I had to sit down so much because I was an aggressive guy and I always had somebody either gas or something, wanting something. And you really had to learn tactically how to handle yourself in a sit
Yeah.
down, how to negotiate.
Oh.
But it was great training for life. It was great training.
Yes, I believe that my street smarts and growing up with these guys and being there all the time, I learned everything about life. I learned it's always better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. I know that
Absolutely.
always.
Absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely. It was something that important to you. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yes, yeah, because if you're going to ask for permission, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Beg for forgiveness. I didn't know. Play stupid.
Yes.
And that usually works.
Yeah, and there's also something tactful in that because you know that in begging for forgiveness, you're going to get it because you knew the situation called for you being forgiven. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And you knew you could be forgiven.
Like Junior, listen, I didn't know. I mean, I made 100 grand. You got your end, but you know what I mean. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do it that way. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll figure this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. But if you would ask for permission, you would have said, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? but you made your 100 grand. Huh?
Made you money.
Well, that's you and I, man. We're just two, like I said, two street guys.
Well, okay, so listen, this book again, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. We advise you to pick it up in your leisure, take a look. And again, just to reiterate, we don't know the author. We're not friends. We don't make any money on it. We just, to me, and to Chazz, the gain on this is to be able to express ourselves and hopefully give you some helpful information along the way.
Great. Hey, this is Chazz Palminteri.
Wise, and I'm Michael Franzese.
The wise guy.
And we'll see you next time.